Shalom. You reached the He Pray channel, and my name is Ozzy Mawath. But first and foremost, I want to say, call Halayim, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakach Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, 7:13:19, where I learned this truth from, who rule well. Salutations to the Bakyar, the elect, the 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel consist of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. The 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to those Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So our people will come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So this is not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that died in this truth. It says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah on his return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah for permitting me to do such. Baba Kashah, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah, allowed us to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. And this video is inspired by something that was weighing on my mind. Is a event that happened, you know, and I guess I was just agitated. Matter of fact, I wasn't. I actually was having a good day before I became agitated. And I guess it's just the enmity that is setting in, towards the 2/3 of our people, specifically end up, man. Um, from Etma Online, the word enmity, late 14th century, hostile feeling. And that's the feeling that I had come upon me when I was, I know you ain't supposed to be going to Chipotle, but I had a craving for barbacoa beef burrito. And in the city that I'm in, Las Vegas, I went to, well, I live next to the rich area, at least as close as I can get. But around this area, Sahara and um, Fort Apache, I believe, or you can get off on Rampart. There's a Chipotle there. And the end was just walking, looking, beat, and I'm driving a nice car and everything. And I just, you don't want to be bothered by these ends. Because in that area, there's a lot of ends that are, dilapidated. But when I got out the car, she approached, well, she didn't she tried from a distance, to ask for some food or whatever. And in my mind, I was like, man, I'm not getting this bitch shit. fucking and you know what I mean? Because of that hostile feeling Yahweh Shem Shah is putting on, not only the men of the Lord, or I should say the men of Yahweh Shah, but also these heathen nations, and even, 2/3 are starting to have animosity or a hostile feeling toward each other as they're hijacking the term black fatigue to make it mean, you're getting tired of so-called blacks, you know, which that's a spirit that's going on right now. But as she was asking me if I would buy her something to eat, she gave that sob story, speaking about her situation. And I'm just like, in my mind, where's your fucking man at? And thinking about all the nastiness that comes out of these demons' mouth, so-called Inda, the so-called black woman, right? But a spirit came upon me, and I kind of broke down from that hostile feeling toward her, because I was thinking about, the testimony that Apostle Tahar always gives about how he helps Jake out, man. And I don't know if I'm gonna get a blessing. I ain't looking for a blessing, but I ended up buying her a little bowl, and I was just, agitated, and one of the scriptures that was going through my head was lead not a beggar's life, right? Because there's ample opportunity, especially for a woman, to go get some money besides begging for it, man. Especially here in Vegas, man. And the pride of these women, they always talk about how they don't need no man. You know, they say the so-called black man ain't shit. And, every negative thought that comes out of these chaos goblins' mouth, it just ran through my head, man. You know, and I was like, man, I'm not helping this bitch. But like I said, uh, the testimony of Yahweh Shem I mean, not Yahweh, but the testimony of Apostle Tahar came in my mind, and all the instances in which he helps Jake. And I don't have a problem with helping Jake, but I'm at the point where I'm just sick of these niggas, man. You know? And it seems as if I'm not the only one, right? Uh, this is Ecclesiasticus, or the book of Sirach, chapter 40, verse 28. Now, this applies to you women too, man. Because if you're a woman out there, begging, it's because of your decisions in life. You might pick the Pookie and Ray Ray, which that, in my mind at that time, that woman should have asked one of those, Pookie and Ray Rays that's catching the bus, because that's what they go for. But she wanted to ask me, thinking I had buku money, because probably the car that I drive, you know. But still, the scriptures still remain. You got to work for your money, man. I'm a hard worker regardless. And a lot of these jakes is lazy as hell, man. It says, my son, lead not a beggar's life, For better it is to die than to beg, but a lot of these women have no shame. Even in my homeless situations, even my jobless situations, I never asked for anything that I never paid back, man. I never made an agreement to pay anybody, and I ain't never paid them back, man. Everybody, well, Slocky, I wouldn't say everybody. I'll say everybody except my mom. I owe her some money, but I plan on paying her back ASAP. You know, I paid back, man. And you can't. There's not enough money in the world that you can give your parents to show them your appreciation for all the things that they did and that they didn't do for you, man. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that's your lot. You just have to make sense of it all, you know. But this is where you get a beggar or beggary. Well, let me go to beggar because beggary is the practice of begging, right? Beggar, one who asks alms, especially as a way of life. So their way of life is dependent on, you know, gaining alms, right? And if I'm not mistaken, alms goes back to charity, right? Alms now, charitable relief of the poor, especially as a religious duty. Also, that which is given to relieve the poor or needy. And that's why we were instructed, according to the law, to give a tenth. Let me see if I can bring it up. If I can't, then I'll just look it up. 'Cause I know it's in Leviticus. And the Esau, man, that's the reason why he's Deuteronomy. That's why he needs to be taken out of power, man, because there's no reason why there should be homeless people in this society, man. You don't see homeless people in these foreign countries, man. You only see homeless people in Esau ran societies for the most part. Besides, those different third world countries suffering through immense poverty. But like one of these developed countries, like China, like, you know, Russia, you rarely see any homeless. But this is Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22. It says, "Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed, that the field bringeth forth year by year." So you're supposed to give some of that increase of thy seed, your produce, your yield, your there's another term that I'm trying to think of, but it's not coming to my mind at the moment. But continuing, it says, "And thou shalt eat before Yahweh thy power in the place which he shall choose to place his name there, the tenth of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thy oil, and the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks. Thou mayest learn to fear Yahweh thy power always," right? Let's see. It really, and you're supposed to give a tenth, right, to the poor. Let me see if it has more. I'll show you. Yeah, I think that's it on that. Let's oh, it goes to 26. Let's go to 26 and it's part more meat. It says, and thou shalt eat before Yahweh thy power in the place which he shall choose to place his name there, the tenth of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thy oil, and the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear Yahweh thy power always. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which Yahweh thy power shall choose to set his name there, then Yahweh thy power hath blessed thee. Then shalt thou turn it into money. So you're supposed to trade it in and turn it into money, and bind up the money in thy hand, and shall go unto the place which Yahweh thy power shall choose. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desireth, and thou shalt eat there, therefore, before Yahweh thy power, and thou shalt rejoice, thou in thy household. Hold on, I don't think this is it. Let's see. I think there's a more defined scripture. Let me see. Okay, so keep going. And this is dealing with the Levites as well. It says, in the Levite that is within thy gates, because they didn't have an inheritance, right? Thou shalt not forsake him, for he hath no part nor inheritance with thee. At the end of 3 years thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thy increase the same year, and shall lay it up within thy gates. And the Levite, because he have no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that Yahweh thy power may bless thee in all the work of thy hand which thou doest. Right? But Esau, he don't follow that, man. He doesn't follow that at all. And that's the reason why people are mourning. This is Proverbs chapter 29, verse 1. He that being often reproved harden his neck, hard-headed effort, right? When he's often corrected, right? Start to be even more stubborn, shall suddenly be destroyed, which is going to lead to their destruction. Which, why is that? Because they're despising ultimately the word, right? It says, and that without remedy, when the righteous are in authority, and that scripture, applies to Esau. It says, when the, and 2/3 of our own people. Verse 2, It says, when the righteous are in authority, and who's the righteous? It's you Israelites, man, the ones that are coming back to who they are, that are being educated, right, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashim Shah, you know. So the righteous are in authority right now. The wicked are in authority. It says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. Are people rejoicing? No, man. For the most part, everybody in the world is mourning, man, because of their situations. It says, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. So we know that the wicked are in authority, man. And going to Job, which I'm not going to go there, the 9th chapter, it says the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, man. Right? So I'm going to say fair use. Not going to play it all. I might as well just go ahead and alter it a little bit. I don't want to slow it down. I want to speed it up. So fair use.
Talk about Shiloh Hendricks, the woman who called a 5-year-old. Talk about Shiloh Hendricks, the woman who called a 5-year-old a racial slur. I have worked with 5-year-olds for the last 15 years. Absolutely everything they do is out of pocket. They're like little unhinged drunk people. Nothing they do makes sense. A 5-year-old is capable of rifling through somebody's bag and taking things that don't belong to them. Ask any kindergarten teacher. But I realize why so many people are wanting to defend this. Because black fatigue is real. I think society as a whole is there. We are just so unbelievably fed up with the ghetto ratchet behavior, entitlement, the victimhood, that they want to praise this woman. But what she did is not praiseworthy. But also on the same hand, please remember that every day that us white people get on this app, we get called racial slurs. Every single day. So if you don't want to be called a racial slur, you also have to stop calling people racial slurs. She'll be watching her back for the rest of her life. Yeah, because that's not thuggery, hidrattery, animalistic. This is why people have black fatigue. When you act like this, it's not normal behavior. People do stupid stuff. People say stupid stuff. That's life. It's not normal to threaten to unalive people because you don't like what they're doing. We're getting sick and tired of opening up TikTok and seeing brawls on cruise ships, brawls in the airport, like literally the most ghetto behavior. We're tired. We're tired of it. But then whining and complaining and acting like it's not your fault that you act that way. Yeah, we're kind of over it.
Ooh.
You know? So, going back to end up, right? Um, the Bible don't speak too kindly of you, man. And despite the Heavenly Father speaking to you people, you're not listening. So what else? What else can he do? He has to put you down, man, like the dog you are, right? It says, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 25, verse 17. It says, the wickedness of a woman changeth her face, right? And darkeneth her countenance like a sackcloth. And you can see it, you can see that demon on them if you ever just so happen to get a bitch angry, man. Or when she's in her get 'em mode, she might start to wear, darker things, darker makeup, darker clothing, you know. But a very dark spirit comes upon them, especially if you live with them for a while, or you you see them out in your day to day. You see the wickedness oozing off of them, man. And the spirit, when you interact with them, you know you get a spirit of enmity. It says, and if the demons on them are strong enough, they might even raise the hair on the back of your head, man. And one thing that I do when I meet a new chick, I don't do it all the time, but I've done it several times. I'll burn Palo Santo, man. And everyone that I dealt with that I shouldn't have, they all ran and left my domicile when I lit that Palo Santo wood, man, because these women got demons on them, man. You know, it says her husband shall sit among his neighbors, and when he heareth it, her actions, you know, rumors, her report, and you see it all on the internet. Oh, your old lady's you know what, you know, which I had to cut this one white bitch off because she's a you know what. And to prove that I can't no longer deal with her, every time I cast a lot. And it always lands on no. And I'm a type of person that respects the lot, whether it lands in my favor or not. You know, it says, shall sigh bitterly. All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. So let the portion of a sinner fall upon her, man. And that's all you ends out there, right? Even us, man. Even the men of the Lord, right? Sometimes, the Most High puts us with a wicked broad, man, to give us some life lessons. There's nothing better than experience. There's one thing for the apostles and elders to tell you about something, but sometimes brothers are scientists that want to be scientific. You're not going to be able to reinvent the wheel. You're not going to be able to make a whore housewife. It's impossible. But with God, all things are possible. But you've been warned. you know, take the advice that brothers give and get you the lesser of two evils, which is the so-called white woman, man, or a woman from the other 11 tribes that is not uh, friends. Her friends ain't predominantly the end of, man. You know, it says, as the climbing up a sandy way is to the feet of the age, so is a wife full of words to a quiet man, which is very, very difficult, man. And I'm a quiet individual by nature because of my upbringing, being, I'm not going to get into it, but you don't want to hear all that fussing and fighting and arguing and bickering and back and forth. You just want peace. And with these women, they don't want peace. They intentionally want to rile you up, man, just to get a reaction, man. Just some even play the game just to see if you're man enough to put them in their place. Which I'm beyond that, man, because I might lose it if a bitch ever called the police on me again. I might go Captain Insano. And once a bitch dials that 911, that's it, man. I'm not coming back. And sure enough, I never did, right? It says, stumble not at the beauty of a woman. And me personally, I like a certain type. They don't necessarily have to be beautiful in the face. Really, I'm looking at their inside more so than anything. And sometimes it get misconstrued. Sometimes I might see something that maybe I commend it. You kind of. I'm always, I've always been somebody that is rooting for the underdog, because all my life I've been the underdog. I've been told, "Oh, I can't do it. I won't succeed. I won't finish like you." And all my life I've just been proving everybody wrong, man, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai. You know, so I look for certain qualities for or in a woman, man, not necessarily their physique or their appearance, because I know, and I knew this from a young age, being subjected to being around, my mom and my sister, which I wasn't raised necessarily by them, because my mom really didn't raise me, you know. But I see all the things that they have to do to get dialed up, and I always was disgusted by it, man. And I'm disgusted that these women carry that arrogancy despite them, using um, witchcraft to deceive, man. Having people, or at least deceiving themselves, thinking people, really are fascinated, with them, and not the mold or the cast, that they put upon themselves. It says, "And desire her not for pleasure." And there's been plenty of women that I've been with that it wasn't even about the pleasure, man. It was just about, you know, her potentially being, a good helpmeet, a good sidekick, if you will. But a lot of them, they don't pass the test. So I put people through tests, whether they see it or they don't see it, whether the outcome is in their favor or my favor. I always put people through tests because I never could trust anybody, man. You know, even in this truth, I never trusted anybody in this truth, you know? And sometimes I would just tell people certain things to see if they were going to spill it, reveal it, you know, or try to use it against me, which this all comes from not being able to trust anybody, right? It says a woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger, impudence, and much reproach, right? Because the longer you with them, especially if you're in a situation where when you're in the hard times, and they might be doing a little better than you, they start to get disgruntled. They start to talk shit. They on the Instagram. They looking at these other niggas. They got the work husband. You know, they got the school husband. You know, and they getting tempted, and they're weak, and then they take that animosity out on you before they get to the point in their mind where they're ready to give up, that punani. And by giving up that punani, they then take on the spirit of the man that they laid down with. And that spirit is clashing with your spirit. So she's gathering that animosity towards you to eventually she pushes you out, tries to get with the next guy, and that don't work. Then she's back at square one. Prime example, look at Cardi B. It says, "A wicked woman abated the courage, maketh the heavy countenance, and the wounded heart." Yeah, men have killed themselves over these women. Some men have 86 these women, and even their offspring, man, because of a wounded heart, which is your mind. It says, a woman that will not comfort her husband in distress maketh weak hands and feeble knees. Of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. Right. Because she was the first that was deceived. And all these women are deceived. That's why they ain't good at picking them, man. How many of these women are still with the man that they lost their virginity to? How many of these women have been with 50, 100, 1,000, 2, 3, 4, 10,000 men? They got 10,000 different spirits on them, man. You know? And then they get offended when you don't want no, WHORE, no 304. And that's all they'll ever be, man. You can't bring them back. It's like a long sickness. It's a long sickness with a strong demon. The only way to alleviate that sickness is to put the host to death, which they're the host. And that's the reason why the Most High is going to kill a lot of you women. It says, give the water no passage, neither a wicked woman liberty to gad abroad. And that's all these women want to do is have fun, go to the club, go to the bar, girls' night out, etc., etc. To get hit on, to get macked on. Some even go to the bathroom and get busy. Some I've seen in my life get busy on the dance floor. you know, One night stands. A lot of these children are products of one night stands, man. Just some jump off, what. It says, if she go not as thou wouldest have her, cut her off from thy flesh and give her a bill of divorce and let her go. Yeah, she don't want to stay in the house. She want to go to the club so she could be around other niggas. Give her a bill of divorce, man. And let's see how she fare when she ain't gonna have a man when all hell breaks loose. So I didn't want to make this video long. As I said before, fair use. Hope at least one brother of the elect was edified. And I'm gonna say, Shalom.